Hi everyone. It is Heidi. I'm wearing an extremely loud sweater right now. It is neon pink. So for anyone, I thought I'd just start doing visual descriptions at the very beginning of every video because some folks that might be on the subscription might be visually impaired is not a good word in the sense that it still like prioritizes vision, but using different senses to interact. So I have very light skin, like creepy white skin. Like it'll burn within 15 minutes of leaving the house. I've got dark hair. I've just given myself bangs. I have hazel eyes and no makeup and a very, very bright pink sweater that goes all the way down. It's because it's like this 80s thing. That's like a sweater dress it's like a blanket. So I'm wearing it and it's super chunky and warm and soft, and I'm in the cave, and so behind me are all the doodads, and these are a bunch of notes from the cave, and behind me is where I keep my tarot cards, and you can see I've done a lot of readings because that second shelf is completely empty because they're all being cleansed because I clean my decks after every reading just because their readings tend to be intense, and so people put a lot of energy into it, and so it's a way of just like energetic safety, boundaries. Yep, I find it very helpful. So the question that we're dealing with today is one I get probably about once a month from people. How do I start my own business? How do I start being a tarot reader? How do I start doing tarot reading as a business? So I'll explain my process because everyone has a different process. No two people have the same process ever. And yeah, that's that. My process was very long and drawn out. I knew I was a healing person, and I've always known that since I was really small. I've always been in the healing arts, not necessarily in like hands-on healing arts, but always been in a helper role, holding space role, witnessing role, listening, always like people before I got trained, people would often say that I like when I went into a room that it would feel better. And you know, the healers would be like, I feel like you're running the energy of the whole room through your body and cleaning it, which is what I do as a default. I've been told that my triple burner meridian line is really strong and I just run things through it. So if you know any more information about that, feel free to jump in and let me know. These things are a mystery to me. I do work with them, but I don't always know how they work. But I can explain my process, and hopefully that resonates with you and gives you something to start out with. So how I started was like I didn't start. I started by myself. I was reading for my own self. I took the tarot deck and I was very private about it. Carried it with me everywhere. It wasn't private in that people didn't know, but I wasn't necessarily sharing the deck. Like that wasn't part of it. But it just kind of happened. Like it was a natural thing for me. And because I was very open about practicing. I was like, listen, I'm new to this, but I'd love to read your tarot. And I would just do it at parties, do it wherever. And it was like a really fun way of me interacting with people. It was definitely, my senses weren't as tuned as they are now. So, you know, if I opened space for like 15 minutes and did a quick reading at a party, it wasn't like I was like, woof, you know, like I would not read at a party now, like ever. Okay. It just is different container, different thing, right? But at that time I was just like learning the cards, learning people, and was just really wanting to do it very casually. Like everything was hyper casual. Like does it happen now, does it happen later, it all is just part of the same time. As long as we get to it, it all ends up in the same container. Very super casual. Like my whole approach was really casual. And I only started getting more container oriented and like hyper boundaried as my gifts increased. So as my gifts increase, and the way I moved through the world changed. That's when I changed how I read. So like it kind of went from like, so the first few years were just like reading. I had an artist residency at my house, and so there was like hundreds of people over all the time because there was a sauna truck in the backyard. It was like a nude sauna truck thing, and there was a fire pit in the backyard, and there was an outdoor shower, and so like 80 to 100 people would show up every week just to sauna. So there were lots of people for me just to read for, right? And I also had art residency at my house, and sauna truck was one of the residents, but then there was also just other artists, like people, and especially random people just coming through town. So it was a very good opportunity for me just to practice. Like I had all these willing people around me that were open to it. They didn't necessarily, it wasn't necessarily a spiritual crowd. It wasn't like, it was a bunch of folks that were like, oh, I just can't wait to, like, it was, they were like tarot curious, but they weren't like tarot people, you know? They were like artists and East Van people, and they were just around, you know? And we were all having a good time, having a blast. It was a good time. I was working at Britannia at the time, so like my day job was quite intense, lots of heavy issues at play there. Yeah, like systemic violence, poverty, abuse, cycles, you know, residential schools, colonial histories. And then you're in the school system, which is super colonized and fucked. So like you're always like mediating this. So that's a whole thing. So when I wasn't looking to get serious, it was like tarot was a fun thing that I was doing for myself, and it was a fun thing to share. It was very light. I held the gift very lightly. It was like party favor. Like I would never want to say that word because it was, I don't mean it as a disrespect, but it was just, I held it lightly. Yeah, it was very respectful, but it was also take what you can from it, you know, which in a lot of ways is still my response. Like, take what you can from it. Like, don't worry about taking all of it. Just take what you can. It's just my container is deepened. So like over time, so at the beginning it was just that, and then I started getting asked to do craft fairs and events, art events, fundraisers, and that was really good because it kind of gave me like the Toast Collective was really nice. It gave me like an entire back room, and then I could have privacy when I was reading. And there was lots of craft fairs basically. I was at Estorino's, and like they just gave me a little corner. Like people were pretty respectful. So even though it was like very public, it was still like I had my space, you know. And like the fundraisers, I did a fundraiser for Vancouver Book Fair. Yeah, one fundraiser, anyway, a few times, but like one of them was like a fundraiser. They put me up in like this tiny little corner, like very, very nice, very cute. And then later on, like I did like an art install, but like part of the install was like me reading tarot, but then that whole room was my art. So it's like I was making that space, but they were like framing it, right? So there was a lot of I really enjoy doing like art and tarot and community. I love that. I think it's so fun. And it was a great way for me just to read totally different people, like not even from my community. Like technically my community is like arts and culture and stuff too, but like it's not like I knew all these people, like they were total strangers. So, you know, and people really liked it. I really liked it. It was really satisfying. It was really satisfying to do that. Yeah, I guess like at the Rattle, I've read just wherever I was really. Oh yeah, at the Beaumont for the Sparkle Party, those transformation projects, they like put me in their sauna truck, and then I got to read for folks before, like at the beginning of the night before people got drunk. That was my shift. But then I also another time read the whole night, but then it was harder when eventually people are more interested when they're drunk, but they're not able, like you shouldn't read for people when they're drunk. It's not going to go far. But really cool experiences, like very, very satisfying. And then it kind of started trickling into like health food stores. So then I, probably about year 5, started reading at Quidita's in their front window because I knew that tarot card reader that was their head reader, and then they introduced me because he was training me a bit. But after 3 sessions, he was like, "You don't need training. You just need a job." Here, introduced me to Tran, who is the owner of Curitas, and Mondays was his day off. So he asked her, like, "Can you get Heidi to work on Mondays?" Which was super generous. And I worked there for 3 years. And you can see it's just like the next little tiptoe step. And it was only like once a week. It wasn't like a lot. And from what I talked with other readers, like this story is like pretty normal, actually. Like the slow build, super slow build, because you're building your skills and you're building your ability to hold space. And then there was a little area. Eventually, I didn't work there anymore because I got really good, and the main tarot reader felt really threatened, felt like I was taking clients away from him. Truthfully, the people that were coming to me had never gotten readings before or gotten readings from him. I was pulling in. Everyone's pulled in from your field, essentially. So if I don't resonate with you, then I can read with you. So you can have 50 tarot readers in a room and everyone would be pulling in different people. You don't have to be afraid of your gifting or being in competition, in a sense. Like, it's just better to work together anyway. So like, if you know another reader, just promote them, just lift them up. Like, they're good people, you know? Then I started working at another health food store, and I got even a better space. I got like a little tiny little room in the back, but the owner of the store was Catholic, and so the workers would, like, they told him I was doing archetypal therapy, because it's true, that's what tarot is, but he wouldn't like the word tarot. So when he was around, they would text me, and then I just wouldn't leave the room until he left, and they would text me again, then I would leave. And it was all like word of mouth. That was like the first time I got a business card. Like, what he does, I hand wrote a business card. It was like the professionalism happened slowly over time. And then at this other health food store, I got my first business card with just my email and my phone number, because I couldn't put what I did on there because I couldn't let the boss know. But yeah, it was just there. And then people just started taking the cards and like word of mouth, you know, and I'm still reading for those people that had to get a hold of me through my phone number or through my website. My email are still people I read for. Whereas the people at Quaditas and the people in the art spots that I would read before, it was all drop by. And so there wasn't necessarily the same commitment. They don't have my number. But some of them I have read since Quaditas. They like intuitively found me later. And I'm like, what? That is really cool. The reunion is super cool. And then after Bombita, then I started reading at Mintage Mall. And that was really the time when it was just timing in my life. I had paid off my student loans. I had made some big changes in my life. I could afford to take a risk financially. And so it was okay for me to read. And then at Mintage Mall, it was really weird. Like the first 6 months was like, no one knew I was there. You're literally just in that little room, just like praying or meditating, putting your vibe out there, whatever you want to call it. I just pray. I think about the people that I wanted to read for. It was very clear that I was happy to share the gift. I consider it a gift. I was happy to share with people that would find it helpful, because if you don't need it, then it's not going to be helpful. Then what's the point? I really had a heart for artists and academics and activists, and people are really trying to do the right thing and just needing a bit of support, and also getting burned out. Like, the burnout is really real. And it's not necessarily that you need therapy, because like I'm also trained in transpersonal therapy, but I don't actually practice that because tarot is full-time basically, and I would have to start another job, and I don't necessarily want to. But therapy is a very different role. Like, you are with someone every week or 2 weeks, and you're like walking, and you'd never tell them what they're feeling or thinking ever. Like, it's all about holding space for them to figure it out themselves, right? And you're just a guide. The tarot, or psychic stuff too, the stuff I do now with like tarot and runes and astrology and like psychic insight, people are calling you up not because they need therapy. I mean, some people do need therapy, and I do have therapists there for people too, because it's always good to keep the good ones close to you. But they're not coming to you for therapy. They're coming because they already have supports in place and they want insight into things. So tarot is a completely different role. It's completely different. It's like you're telling people, you're like, this is what I'm seeing. Does this land? And you're just making sure that, and yes, some people, you don't see what they want you to see. And sometimes you see things, but you can't talk about them. Sometimes it's not supposed to come from you. Like there's all kinds of complications. Sometimes you explain something, it doesn't make any sense to them, or they take it as all or nothing. Like it is complex. But I do the best I can, and I try to be as clear as possible. And I'm always open to conversations after the fact if something didn't work for you. But I try my best. And I would say that for the most time, like people might just be sucking up to me, but in the past year, like if I just take 1 year at a time, there were 3 people, I think, that had a problem with the reading. And it made sense when we talked it out, but they got triggered in the reading, basically. But that's a really low stat considering that I probably read for like 200 people or 125. I'm really bad at numbers. Like about 20 people a month last year. So 240 people. But a lot of them are the same people. So probably only 125 people or like 75 people, truthfully. But still, it's a lot of readings. And there's a really low. And I think the reason is that I've really prioritized like relationships with my clients. And at the pandemic, then I wasn't reading in real life. I went online. And, you know, truthfully, becoming a tarot reader is just like the slowest burn ever. I know some people rip into it, but that wasn't my truth. And I'm glad because I only got my first deck in 2010 or something. Like it was 10 years ago. Or like 2009. It wasn't a long time ago. So you need, like, even though I came in already having other skills in like healing and counseling and outreach, and like I've always been super psychic, prophetic, intuitive, like that's been well developed since a long time. But tarot actually gave me a lot of safety because it gave me some, it's not me, it's the cards. You know, like here they are on the cards. You don't believe me, like believe your cards, you pulled them. Like I really love working with tarot because it's just like it's very immediate. But I mean, at this point currently we're in the pandemic and working online, like I do read the cards and I send pictures to people, but it's not the same as people shuffling and holding and doing them all themselves. So like, yeah, you do have to like, and I might not go back to an in-person space because Mintage doesn't have a space anymore, and it would have to be the right thing. And I'm really enjoying working at home. But when I do go back to a physical space, or if that happens, then my work would just change again. So if you're looking for stability, I don't really know if tarot is the best path for you. I mean, I do find it stable in terms of like my income, but it's also because I've set up my business that way. Like when I got into Mintage, that's when Skylar said you needed an Instagram. So I have an Instagram. And then one of my clients was also a small business coach and was like, you need to have a website and an email list and a booking app. And I was like, no, it's got to be personal. I don't even like that, you know? It's got to be personal. And then over time, it just was too exhausting. I just automated because of ease. Like it's so much easier people booking on Calendly than texting me, even though I really liked being able to text people and like kind of answer questions as a part of that. Like it was better on Calendly. Everything came slowly. Like I have an email list now. There's like 85 people on it. It's not big. I have a very big operation while being a small operation. And that's also my intention. I didn't want to be famous. Didn't want everyone to know about me. I don't want to seed the world with the love of tarot and witches and freaky, beautiful queers taking over the world. Like I believe in all those things, of course, but like I don't want to be the face of that movement. I am, but I'm not going for like 20K followers. Because there's people that really are totally okay with that and they're not me. You're the one that gets to choose how you work your practice. If you want to be like super famous tarot person that like writes books like Madame Hamida, who is phenomenal, by the way, you can, because everyone loves tarot. People love the occult. Everyone has a sense of something bigger than themselves, even if it doesn't really matter how they want to call it. Like people get goosebumps, people feel things. Like everyone has these senses and they love it. It's really hard. Even the people that I've read for that are like, I don't believe in tarot. I think it's all a lie. You're just a sham. You're just going to rip me off. Okay, no problem. Do you want me to read for you? Yeah, totally. I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to say anything. No problem. Just sit down. I'll read for you. You don't need to tell me anything. You don't have to believe me. Like, it's nice when people do, but they don't need to. And all those people that have been like really hesitant or like, I don't believe you, they've all had a great time. They're like, oh, wow, you give me lots to think about. I'm like, great, that's the point. Like, I'm not here to solve all your problems. I'm not here to make any false claims. I am only here to witness what's revealed. So that's my intention. Your business, because it's a magical business, like all businesses do this, but especially I find that tarot does this, or at least I'm more aware of it, is that it really responds to your intention. So my intention is to work for, I consider myself working for my clients. Like, I want to keep myself in a good way. I want to make enough money to like have therapy and have vitamins and like be able to buy new clothes. Not a lot of clothes and not Chanel clothes, but like, oh yeah, like I'm wearing tights. Oh, you can barely, there they are. Yeah, I bought those. And I have wool socks on. I mean, my tights have a hole in them and the wool socks falling apart. But the truth is that like I used to make everything from scratch. So I would have sewn that sock. I would have knitted myself leg warmers or something. So standard of living is important. Some tarot readers really want to like make bank, and I think that's you're allowed to want to buy a house and like have an investment and like have stuff for your kids or whatever, or like pay it forward, or like I really want to do whatever with it. A lot of tarot readers really want to pay it forward to like indigenous issues, or like, you know, women that are being abused, you know, things like that, inner city. Like a lot of tarot readers, there are some tarot readers, it feels like there's two camps. There's like one camp of like, there's yeah, not they're all not the same. There's like Republican readers and Democratic readers, everyone in the mix, but like there's like definitely a stream of tarot readers that, you know, part of their proceeds go towards different causes. And like I guess one of my goals is that my business goals is that one day I'll make enough that I can like definitely just give 25% away. Like that would be great. But yeah, I charge less than I could. And I find that to be important to me because I want people to be able to, I want to be able to read for them. And I don't want you to have to be wealthy to be able to afford a reading. I do need to get paid, but I don't need to be super rich or anything. I just need to be, I just want to have rent and food and clothes and sleep and some good mental health. And I want to have some savings. And one day it'd be really great to own a house. Probably not in Vancouver, but so those are my business goals. Like your business will be driven by your needs. And if you're like, I'm just starting out and I'm just reading cards out of my house, that's totally legit. I did that too for a few years. I read out of my house. I would not recommend that because then people can show up at your house wanting tarot readings and you might want to be sleeping. The most like people show up at your house, I need a tarot reading at like 2:00 in the morning after they got dumped, or at midnight when they're like biking home and they know your house. Oh yeah, Heidi read for me here. Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth it unless you're like have, I don't know, maybe it's different for different personality types. I know that it got kind of stocky for me, so I don't do it anymore. Yeah, I did it for a bit. Mhm. So I hope that helped. I can do more of these videos because people want to know about like, how did I manifest it? How did I do this or that? And like, yes, there was magic, but there's also just like the physical act of showing up every day and being like, I still want to read tarot. The moment I decide I don't want to do tarot, the whole thing falls apart. It's responding to me. If I wake up, especially when I was starting my business or doing on-call stuff, like I'm dropping tarot at like the health food at Queritas. Like if I woke up and I didn't want to read for anyone, I was like, nah, I'd be read for a person or two, but I'm feeling really funky. I'm not going to get any clients. But all I would have to do is get up, sit there, meditate, and be like, I'm really ready to read for someone. And I'm just cultivating my precious energies so that I'm here. I'm ready. And it would look really stern because I normally kind of look like this when I meditate, which is a bit intense. I don't look friendly or engaged. I'm like super serious. But someone would come in and say, hey, are you free? And I'm like, yeah, I'm free. What do you do? Well, I do tarot readings. Oh, okay. What kind of tarot readings? Well, I recommend like half an hour minimum. And most people do an hour. Oh, okay. How much do you charge? Well, it's a sliding scale, but 20 to 60, and like preferred $1 a minute. So preferred is 60. That's how much I started. Although I always did a sliding scale. I was like, if you want to have a reading, I'm not going to say I'm not going to read for you, especially if I feel called to it. And then over time, as my skills increased and as the value increased in my readings and the amount of energy I was doing for the readings shifted, and the space that I was holding. And yeah, there's a big difference between what I'm doing now with like Calendly and Zoom and an office and a space and all these things versus like putting my tarot decks in my bag and walking down the street to Queritas and like writing my number on the back of the Queritas gift certificate. Like your business will change and everything that goes along with it will change too. The one thing that's been the same is people love it and I love doing it. So I just keep doing it. And if you're a reader and you don't feel like fueled after the readings, then it's something to check in about. I can talk about this a lot, so maybe I'll talk about it more later, but hopefully that helps. How do I start a tarot business? Just start somewhere and someone will let you in. It will just happen, but you have to put the work in and no one's going to ask you to do nothing if you're not telling anyone anything. So you have to be willing to like grease the wheel and do the word of mouth and go. You can't just like sit in your house meditating and one day someone just that doesn't know where you live shows up to you and be like, hey, I feel like there's a tarot reader living there. Like, no, that's like, you have to put yourself out there. Like it worked just fine without an Instagram, but I really like Instagram now because it's like a little website. So it makes it easy for people to book and whatnot, but it came to me at the right time. I would have done it earlier in life. And that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this and that you have a wonderful day. And if you want to hear more about this, make sure you comment below. I don't know if you can actually comment on a subscription video, but comment below. And yeah, DM me if you want more, if you have more questions and stuff. I'm totally taking requests. All right. Take care. Have fun, everyone. Bye. I'm so slick. Here I am. Bye, everyone.